Pam and I will be talking today about power of thought and crop circles and the greater connection, and reviewing some of the past history of us and our civilization and how we got here and where it led us and some of the interesting things that are going on. The rapidly disappearing water back there in the urn is at this point in a energy vortex that we have created with our intention. This is the positive end of it. This is the negative end. The size of this diameter here just fits in this room. The other one is extending from shore to shore out there in Cannock Lake. This is the positive one. The way this is operating, and you can test it with your dowsing equipment, is that for 20 seconds at a time, positive energy swirls up. This is a huge energy structure. Swirls up out of this room into the atmosphere, joining into the energy grid of the Earth. It pauses for 10 seconds, comes back down for 20, pauses for 10, rises again for 20. This is the geobiological structure that we have created here. Same thing out here in Cannock Lake, but that's the negative side of the energy. Not necessarily bad, just this is a lot more fun and better for you. This is just harder to deal with. There's nothing really that bad about bad energy. It's just part of the thing. You can't, as it was said earlier, you can't take just the negative pole off of a magnet and expect anything to be improved. Okay, it's all part of the system. Anyway, that is what that is. Just by the way, we will be analyzing that later. We'll get into that later in the presentation.
Yeah, the purpose was to put all of our intentions for a better world into that water. Now, people have been drinking it, so that's good. But the intention was, and we'll announce it maybe at dinner, that we put all our intentions in there for a better world. And then at the end of the conference, you can take some of that with you. We'll have bottles for sale that are empty and sterilized that have labels on. You can get them at our table, and you can take that home with you and do whatever you want with it. So we'll add more water, and we're getting it from our well, so it's very pure water. We're not taking it out of the tap. So we'll fill you in later, too, when everybody else is around.
We've got some breaking news in. The aliens refuse to do crop circles in GM fields. It's just too risky. So maybe that chapter's over and they're not going to do that anymore. Anyway, this was mentioned in the introduction. I won't go into great detail, but there was an experience as a teenager where a blue beam looked a lot like that. The blue beam came down on me. It was missing time, that sort of thing. There was something going on that was not talked about in school and wasn't since then, which led eventually to the publishing business.
And for me, and it's interesting, we both had these experiences in 1962. I was with my parents, and we were coming into our neighborhood, and something was about 50 feet above the telephone pole, just silent. And it was a combination of feeling some fear, but feeling a lot of love. And it was lucky for me as a young child that my parents were with me, and they were very open-minded, because doing this alone, like Brian, it was harder. He had really nobody to talk to. But my grandmother was in the seat next to me, and she was like turned off. She never mentioned it. You know, we talked about it for days, and she never mentioned it. But it was life-changing. I mean, it's just life-changing. And who knows what happens around it, but...
We were in Oregon in 1990 when this particular event occurred. Maybe you heard something about it. Out in the Oregon desert, where the soil is hard-packed like concrete, there was a discovery one day. Somebody flew over an airplane, and here's this, what is it? It's a formation exactly like the Sri Yantra meditative mandala of the Eastern religions. 13 miles across, 3 inches deep, and the soil that had been removed. It wasn't there. There was no dust piles. So the scoffers came out and said, "Oh yeah, we can do that. Look, we'll just do it next Thursday. Come out and watch." And they couldn't get more than a half inch deep, and they left lots of dirt piles. And then they didn't say much. So we found that at that point, not all these crop circles are in crops, they're not all circles, and sometimes there's a very profound spiritual component, at which point those who would like not to look at the conclusions that derive from these observations just have to ignore it. That's the only thing they can do. Turn the page and go on to something else they do understand.
And this is Ida Cannon Berg. We met her when we came together, and she was one of the earliest abductees, contactees. She was taken in the desert one night, but she was an amazing woman. She's passed over now. She started getting voices in her head and thought she was crazy for a while, but after she put herself into a mental institution, she realized how uncrazy she was, and she told them everything they needed to hear so she could get out of there. But she had a profound interaction with these beings for 50 years. Sometimes she had to just tell them to go away, but a lot of information came through, and she did a lot of reading, and at one point she used to write down when she was a child about her book of truth. She called it her book of truth. And one day one of these voices, the hidden one, said to her, "Where did you get this information, Ida? This is information we know that you shouldn't even know." I mean, she was a highly intelligent, amazing woman, and maybe not from here anyway. But it was with Ida that these beings spoke to us through her. And we said, what can we do, to help get this information out or to help the planet? And they said, we need publishers. And of course we went, okay, count us out, we'll do it. It was one of those things where you don't even think about. Were we pre-programmed? Was it fate? What do you call it? But we went on.
Maybe we signed up for it before we came into this life.
I probably did.
Yeah.
And one of the things we got from her, which I love this and I've carried it with me all the time, is that nobody gets the whole truth. It's by putting our truths together, it's by putting our stories together that we'll put the pieces of the puzzle together. And we heard a lot of crazy stories in publishing, and I always had to step back and say, some people don't believe my simple story. I just have to get rid of the judgment and just bring it in and allow it to happen because it is a piece of the puzzle. And then Isabel Kingston in England, she has worked with the Watchers, and she got the same information back in the 80s. And they said to her, when you do this, when you share your stories, a vein of gold will run through it. And I think it's a way of bringing us together, and that's going to be a big challenge. But it's time to share, because getting up here and talking about even talking about being a UFO publisher was difficult for a while. It's like a closet publisher. But it's time to share.
So we have determined that we don't know anything, and Leo Tolstoy was on that. He said this, the only thing that we know is that we know nothing. And that is the highest flight of human wisdom. Anytime you think you know something, you better just step back a little bit, because there's no way to know that you have all the information you need to judge that you know that.
And yet as dowsers, we go into our inner knowing, and I'm not going to deny that either, but I think what they're saying is we absolutely don't know for sure, but we can learn as we go, and things start making more sense.
So while we seek truth, we have come to the position where we like to talk about the most likely truth, and we'll abbreviate that as an MLT, because we can't say this is the truth. We can say this is our personal truth, but we see a lot of things and different people, and we put all the stuff together, and certain things seem to come out quite a bit. So we will call these the most likely truths, or MLTs. There's a lot to it. It's all part of this paradigm shift. So the first one we should probably all look at for just a moment is that we're a very young planet in the backwaters of an ancient galaxy in a very ancient universe. And give us another million or billion years, and what might we do? Chances are that whoever the visitors are, they've got perhaps billions of years head start on us. So things we're just beginning to be suspicious of and suspect, they've known for millions of years. So they're probably ancient and experienced, whoever they are. Another most likely truth is that advanced visitors probably terraformed this planet. This is what we're told, and then cultivated us here. This planet was probably formless and void, lifeless, and as the advanced intelligences wandered out across the universe, and they found that, said, hey, here's an experiment, let's do this, see if we can make this plant live. And they brought life and DNA and various things here over millions of years, and they did genetic modification on things and put it together, made this planet that we live on.
And look at the stage we're at now with GMOs.
Yeah.
And test tube babies. We're not really that far along, so what would we do a million years from now as a species?
So we understand the MLT is probably that we are a GMO species, genetically modified combination of partly upstanding hominids that developed here and inserted genetics from the visitors. And that means we're a GMO species, and we don't like GMOs, so, oh boy, don't know about that.
So Sandy Mack was talking about the Bosnian pyramid, and all over this planet there is amazing structures that were put down. And you had primitive people, and then these amazing civilizations with these amazing technologies, and then more primitive people, although the primitive people are very advanced spiritually. But this, I don't know if any of you heard it, but it's a third larger than the Pyramid of Giza, and it's 30,000 years old, and there is man-made cement in it. It's an amazing, there's 5 of them there in this very small village in Bosnia. There's tunnels all over the place that they're opening up. There's like ceramic pieces that are huge, that possibly giants stayed in. I mean, it's quite incredible. And there's a wonderful scientist over there who is listening to dowsers and listening to spiritual people to try to get answers. He's not just thinking just about science, which is amazing. Another beautiful example of when people were totally connected to their energy, totally connected to the spirit world and the matter world, and they created Avebury, and they worshiped there, and they were fed by these energies, and they were precise. There were roads coming off of Avebury that twirled around and came within 2.13 meters or something from Silbury Hill. I mean, this is like miles and miles, and precision was wonderful. How did they do it? They were very connected, though.
The most likely truth that I think few in the room would disagree with is that there is a global subtle energy grid connected in lines and intersections all around the world. And the figures you see there in the middle, those are the kind of vortexes that exist throughout this energy grid. And this is one that I talked about earlier that we have created. You're sitting in one right now. The positive one that is going up 20 seconds, pause 10, down 20, pause 10, forever. We can leave this here and leave it as an energy processing and transducing device. There are vortices, telluric chimneys. Those are energy, earth energy chimneys. Chimneys are like these. They're moving energy coming and going. That's Richard Benesch's book, Mission Mother Earth. Another thing that we note is that everything is circular, except for the Christian interpretation of life. But we take that in a different direction.
And as everybody in this room knows, we are human beings and spiritual beings having a human experience. And a lot of people just think we're physical beings, and when we die, we die.
But we've gone we've gone past that idea of our being physical beings. I think we're okay with that. So,
and life used to be circular for everyone. I mean, they saw everything's a circle, everything's a pattern, everything's synchronous. And then it was Constantine who took that away from the Christians. Most religions do believe in the circular process of life, but Constantine removed that from the Bible at Nicaea, and it became a direct path.
It was easier to control people if they didn't think they had a different chance and a second chance. There seems to be a vibrational hierarchy. Not only do these energies exist, but they vibrate at different levels. And the crop circle on the right of this screen is one that has been interpreted by Akashic readers as an image of this energy hierarchy, the human ladder, as it is sometimes called. It's like looking down a hallway with doors coming out on either side, or looking up from inside of a pyramid. There seem to be high vibrational beings that watch us. I think sometimes that another MLT, and most likely truth, is that the Earth is some kind of a reality show for angels.
How many saw the Truman Show, the movie? I think we're the Truman Show.
Something like that. They watch us, we can't see
It's
them.
just really big, though. We can't find the walls.
So one of the understandings here is that we can't see most of these beings because of this kind of aspect of vibration. We can't see things that vibrate much more rapidly than we do. It's like we can't really see a propeller on an airplane when it's going. We have to wait until it stops, and then we can see it. So these beings can become invisible just by lifting the rate of their vibration, or perhaps they live in those levels of vibration. Sometimes the veil thins, or the vibrations are such that we can perceive, or perhaps the camera that we are taking has a wider perception than our eyes, and we get photographs like this. If Christina Whitehead makes it here, she has a lot of photographs along that line.
So if these advanced benevolent beings appeared 2,000 years ago, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, they would have been viewed as gods. And sometimes they were viewed as angry and dreadful gods. And you wonder about some of these gods that were viewed as angry and dreadful, especially the New Testament gods. There are, water to them may possibly just be a heavy atmosphere. Lots of people have seen UFOs coming in and out of the water. They could easily live down there. To me, I was not a Bible studying person until recently, and I find that there's a lot of codes in there. There's a lot of interesting things, and I'm fascinated with it. And one of the things on the next slide relates to maybe these underwater beings or these under-earth beings. This is Exodus chapter 20. You shall not make for yourself an idol or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. Now, as humans, we don't see anything under there. We really can't see what's up in heaven, wherever heaven is. We don't see under the water. I mean, now we do, but we couldn't 2,000 years ago. And we couldn't see under the earth. So what were they talking about? They used to make idols, of cattle, cows, and many idols, but not anything that was in these places, or did they not want to be seen? And if you do see us, don't make an idol out of us. And then it was like somebody else was talking to them and saying, we don't want you to worship them. So are these one beings talking about other beings? I don't know, I'm throwing this out. This is definitely something, who knows, but it's fun to explore. And some of these, this was hard for us to accept, that some of these ancient beings may be reptilian or reptarians. Some of our authors have had good experience with reptilians. Some have had bad experiences with them. And I look at it as humans. We have good, bad, and indifferent. And we often look at it as beings who are self-serving versus serving others. So it's not so much negative and positive, but maybe stages of evolvement, whether you're human or a reptarian. But these beings may be living underground.
It took us a long time to give much credibility to that idea. I mean, when I first came across that kind of idea, come on, there's no oxygen down there. Nonsense. Can't live underground. But we kept hearing it from many different places, and it seems like it might be something that's going on. If you want to talk to someone here at the conference that has had personal experience many times with these folks, talk to Daniel Brand. he's here.
As humans, we also forget Daniel.
Daniel Brand, B-R-A-N-N.
As humans, we forget that, there are worlds within worlds, and we're living in dimensions, and we're seeing this dimension, but there's all kinds of dimensions around us, We forget that, so.
It seems that these beings that apparently are living under the surface of the earth cannot feel love or compassion. It's just not in their DNA. It's not in their structure. It doesn't mean that they are evil. It's just they're incapable. They don't have the DNA structure to work with this. And we are told that some of the chaos that goes on with humans has to do with the human race being loving enough to allow some of these reptilian souls to incarnate as humans, to have personal experience with a species that does know love and compassion. And that takes the whole conversation to a much higher level than anything that we've seen before. One thing that does seem to happen is that when that happens, when these reptilians incarnate as humans, or they walk into naive, unprotected individuals, they can make them become, mass murderers, and you see all this stuff. Well, at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. Well, who was in charge? There's a lot of that. Well, why would they be doing that?
Or they could be here to learn. We worked with a woman who was a practicing Buddhist, and I was talking to her one day, and her face opened up into this reptilian face, and my face must have gone. She said, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." But she was not an evil person. I mean, maybe sometimes she was manipulative, but she was by no means an evil person. So, and maybe I'm nuts, but that's what I saw. It was I won't forget that for a long time.
And there's an aspect of them that we are told that we have to keep in mind here. And I mean, everything eats, right? And they eat, and it seems like what they eat is consciousness. And I would imagine that they have different tastes, But if we create a lot of excess negativity, I mean, there's dinner, But maybe they're doing a good job. Somebody's got to eat it, otherwise it builds up. So I don't know. We can't judge. But we do think that the ideas in the Bible of Satan from hell and so on may have been an interpretation of these kind of folks below the surface. Wrong button.
Is it going?
Yeah. So our first reaction to knowledge of things like this, these evil beings underground, is, well, we got to fight them. Whatever, they've got to fight. But that creates what they eat. It may be that we just can't fight. What we really have to do, as we're doing at this conference, is create the better vision and focus on that. And learn how to be warm and cooperative and loving and sustainable and all these things, and just don't feed the energy into all of the coverage of the assassinations and the violence and the terrorism and all the rest of that. We may have to just starve them out. As Mark Twain said, if your only tool is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. So maybe we need a screwdriver. This is Richard Benesch. Check out his various things. He's a geobiologist. He's been working on these global energy flows for a long time. He has a seminar on Monday about protection mechanisms. And it's a wonderful course, easy to understand, basically necessary for anybody that wants to live in this multidimensional world of beings that are unseen and sometimes a little dangerous.
And we go back into how most of us lived before technology came and before religions really took over, and we lived in this great chain of being. And I think personally they're trying to get us back into that great chain of being, to know that we are connected, we are physical, we are part of matter and spirit and oneness. And the Kiro Indians talk about releasing negative energy and releasing it from your energy body and putting it into the earth. And I'm sure a lot of you have been told, when you have negative energy, put it into the earth. And it's a different way to look at feeding these beings is, okay, I used to feel bad giving my negative energy to the earth. Doesn't she have enough with us on top? But if there are energy type beings that feed off this negative energy, have it. Have at it. I will give you as much as I have.
No shortage.
No shortage. No shortage on this planet. That's true. So then you look at we talked a little bit about the Old Testament, about these dreadful gods and people being fearful and all of this. And then all of a sudden it was like, did new visitors come in? The New Testament was written down as new visitors with look at this. Think about this now. Love and oneness. You're very powerful. Everything I can do, you can do more. And in the beginning, and to love one's neighbor as themselves. It means much more than all the burnt offerings and all that other stuff we talked about in the Old Testament. No, it's not about that anymore. Now it's about love, oneness. Don't let anyone mislead you. Very different energy came in. Where they came from, who it was, we don't know. But there's a lot of passages in the Bible that talk about clouds coming down from the sky, people going into the cloud. They were afraid when they entered the cloud. The one about the Christmas story. And the star which they had seen in the east went on before them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. Now, stars don't usually do that. But Brian had, if he was 2,000 years ago and had have a beam come down on him.
It wasn't quite 2,000 years ago.
No, it wasn't. But if it would have been 2,000 years ago, and it was higher up, his was low, but if it was higher up and a beam came down, you could think it was a star. And was Jeshua one of these new voices? There's a lot of phrases. There's a lot of confusion in the Bible. One thing that's repeated over and over, this is my son, listen to him. And there was good message. There's a lot of not good messages, but some good ones. And then Rome took over. You know what happened? We're getting this good message, this good energy. We're empowered and everything else. And Constantine sees a cross in the sky, and he's battling that day, and he gets this vision, and he wins the battle, and so he embraces the cross, and he pretty much takes over Christianity, and you can move it. Imperial Rome becomes the imperial church. And that's when it starts to go downhill, because Rome was powerful, and the priests became powerful, and heretics became everywhere, and people died. And that's a very ancient crop circle picture there from the 1600s, and you can see there's a little devil in there. Wasn't about the connection of great chain of being. Wasn't about nature making these crop circles. Now it's the devil. There's separation from the spirit. It's when Giordano Bruno was killed and slayed for telling people what the universe was like.
I mean, what a horrible thing to say those kinds of things, that there are planets out there and other suns, and I mean, this is science, but he was burned for that. Galileo was imprisoned in his house under house arrest for many years for saying that he observed phases like the moon when he looked at Venus. Can't say that. So
religion held sway and became very, very powerful for many, many years, and it was not good with the Crusades. We don't have to go into that. And that's when the church and science split. That was the real division of spirit and matter, which was a necessary thing, or we probably wouldn't have gone anywhere with science. That's when Newton entered the scene, and the physical became really, really important. Reductionism was born. The scientific method was born, which is all wonderful, but now we swung the other way so much that as dowsers or as spiritual people, taking herbs, I just heard the other day that in France, you can't buy herbs in the store. You know, they want us to take the pharmaceuticals and all these stuff from their tests and control us. So it's become a little too far. And then Darwin came on the scene and said, we're at the top of the food chain. We're survival of the fittest. We may not be at the top of the food chain. That's going to be very hard for us to accept. But if we accept it all along that we're part of this great chain of being and we're in a space somewhere, it would be a lot easier to just go forward and embrace the people who are beyond us. So now we're in the Church of Science, where scientists who are going outside of the realm of Western science can lose their jobs. You know, they might not get funding. You get funding for where the money is. And right now with medicine, it's pharmaceuticals.
And every good church has orthodox dogma. And every good church has heretics. Here's a good heretic from the Church of Science, our friend Nikola Tesla, who, if you get into his story and so on, he was talking ETs and all kinds of things too. He said, if you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Well, can't have that. So they burned his laboratory and took his ideas and all his models and all the rest of that, put an end to that. So we now have ancient technologies like coal-fired plants that generate alternating current, and so it's all billable. You don't want free energy. Nobody gets rich on that.
Do you know where that was?
No, no, I don't. I think it was New York. It was northeast. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now science is ruling and took ascendancy in our lives.
So the
And
pendulum has swung back.
the pendulum, the swinging of the pendulum. And the church could hardly compete. I mean, science just took off with amazing things. And I don't mean to put it down. It's amazing. We need balance.
I liked the Greg Braden quote earlier today that there are many ways to understand evidence, and science is one, but it's not a very good one.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, this is a very good quote from Aquinas, that we must love them both sides. You know, and we see this all the time, these edges that are battling back and forth. Those whose opinions we share and those whose opinions we don't share, because both of them have labored to search for their truth, and through them we learn too. So that keeps us a little at peace.
Which takes us back to Ida. You got to put the pieces
Right.
together.
Right.
There's value in both ends of any dichotomy.
And our loss to modern society is that when we got into this, you know, science and reductionism and tests and everything, we lost the magic. You know, the dowsing was put underneath, magic, the fairies, angels, all of it went out the door. And one of the things about, you know, we still have acupuncture, which is over 5,000 years old, because the Eastern scientists never really lost the fact that the world consists of a seen world, matter, and an unseen world, spirit. And in some ways, they're very, very far ahead of us, with healing in particular. And these people, the Dogons in Africa, they never lost their connection with the great chain of being, and they never lost their connection with their star nation that they feel they're from Sirius. And these very indigenous, primitive people understood how Sirius B moved around Sirius A before our astronomers even knew Sirius B existed. Now, how does that happen? But they revere that connection, and they've kept it strong. The super psychics in China are revered and protected. Now, some of the scientists in China that have been more westernized, you know, they want them tested. But a lot of these children are coming up where they can read a paper by putting it up to their ear or under their armpit. And they can move, they use kinesiology, they can move pills out of a bottle. And one of the things that I love is, not to change glasses, U.S. News and World Report, this is all they said about a group of Chinese psychics visiting somewhere in Mongolia. It was the Twilight Zone in Washington. Chinese psychics are described in just one little sentence. In Mongolia, a psychic master lectures before 35,000 people in a football stadium. That's all that was reported in this country. But this person was a super psychic, graduated from traditional Chinese medicine. He has healed using mind power instead of drugs, traumatic paralysis, neurosis, rheumatism, hepatitis, cancer, and other conditions. But it's not going to be reported. That's why we feel it's so important that spirit and science need to come back together, because that's when we're really going to move ahead.
So what lies between science and religion? Things like crop circles. The scientists say, oh, that's got to be done by pranksters. And the religious people say, well, I'm not going to talk about that. But there is a very interesting phenomenon here, which we need to look at. What else is between science and religion? The whole arena of dowsing, the access to these subtle energies and working with them and manipulating them. Science doesn't want to look at it, religion doesn't want to look at it, but we have the opportunity here at this conference to talk to each other, learn how better to do this, and to put these tools to work. The science ones are insufficient, the religious ones are insufficient. Maybe we have an opportunity here to really move the world forward. This is called a paradigm shift, and you should know that term. A paradigm is a set of mutually reinforcing assertions about the nature of reality. And they're hard to shift because you can't knock out one because the others knock you out. You got to have a different set of all of them, create a new set of mutually reinforcing assertions about reality and shift to all of them at the same time. But we're linear people. And it's hard for us to go from one to the other and really understand something. We have to understand everything collectively at one fell swoop, and that's hard. But that's what we're doing here.
And the guardians who we work with are spirit guides, angels, whatever you want to call them, your ET companions, whatever they are. They really don't like to intervene unless we ask. But I've come to a much greater understanding that most humans will go around and say, well, I have free will and you're not going to touch me. You know, this is sovereign. And we are a free will planet, so we hear. But if we have worlds within worlds, and we live with other dimensions and beings who are in other dimensions, when we set off a nuclear bomb, it affects everybody around us and our neighbors. And they have a viewpoint of, we are going to work for the greater good. And if a piece of the greater good is a piece of the whole is affecting the greater good, we're going to come in and intervene. And I from what I understand, and this can't be proven at all, several nuclear bombs that were set to go off did not go off because of intervention, but that's hearsay totally. But I hope they are, because of those things I hope they are intervening with.
It's pretty well established that a number of the nuclear missile bases just
shut down.
And a UFO was seen going over.
And Brian's about to cry, so that means it's true.
No, this has been periodically.
And this is basically why.
Mm-hmm.
We are about to destroy this planet. And there's a lot of, I want to do everything I can to keep it, and so do other people, and I'm glad for that too. So I talked a little bit about the Watchers before. This is a group of highly creative, intelligent beings who have come, and they worked with Isabel Kingston in England. They came in the 80s, and they wanted to work with her to start working on the energy over in England with the agroglyph counties. And they told her that it was time for these ancient sites to be cleansed again, because they were going to be bringing in new energy into this area and for the whole world. And they said Silbury Hill was really put down when it was put down because it was an insurance policy for this time period. So she was working with them for 10, 15, 20 years before the crop circles really started building again. And this, it's a shame. So they are connecting us. They're
Yeah.
trying to connect us to this great chain of being. And they're bringing spirit and matter together through these crop circles because they're formed in the physical, and it's a shame there's a crop circle that it's not coming up. I'll describe it. But it's formed in wheat.
Sometimes they take them back.
Formed in the ground, yeah. Formed in the ground, but we don't know how they're doing it. So we're looking at new science. We're looking at things that happen in an impossible amount of time. The one that, imagine, there's a crop circle in wheat. There are little like bird nests where the wheat is woven into circles. There might have been 20 of them. It is woven as a pattern, like a basket woven. It was really pretty. Really pretty picture up there. That, for us, is impossible to do in wheat. So they're opening our minds to, okay, how is this done? So they're trying to merge us back into science and spirit. Whew, what magic happens.
So what are these crop circles? They're not all circles, so we typically call them agroglyphs. They're not all agricultural. Sometimes it's dust and sometimes it's snow and all kinds of different things, but they probably, we think, are clues that enable us to move closer to an understanding of the truth without violating their ideas that they will not interfere in what we're doing. So there's messages here and information that we need to look at. An example of that was this one from a few years back, and it took people a long time until somebody who was a chemist said, how come you got that picture of the melatonin molecule there? I thought you were working with crop circles. What's that melatonin molecule? Well, they checked it out, and it's exactly what that is. So the question is, why would some high school prankster do that? Why would anybody go to the bother of creating that molecule? So you look into, well, what's melatonin got to do with anything? And we find out that not only is it a sleep aid, but it has a job to do during the night, and it cleans up the free radicals that are created in our bodies, especially with the kind of foods that we eat. And those free radicals cause all kinds of diseases. So it's good to clean them up. So it's good to have the melatonin. So why don't we have the melatonin? Well, the melatonin is released by the pineal gland in the middle of the brain, which strangely observes whether or not it's light or not. And when it's dark, it says, hey, let the melatonin out. However, radio frequency is close to visible light, and the pineal gland interprets radio frequency, that is cell phone towers, cell phones, and so on, as visible light. It says, still sunny out there, we're going to hold the melatonin. So we don't release the melatonin, we get sick. And so what do we need to do? Take melatonin supplements. Well, if somebody gives you advice like that, that's probably not somebody trying to kill you. And that's probably not coming from an enemy. That's coming from somebody that cares about us.
Radio
frequency, cell towers and cell phones, and it's electrosmog.
Here's another symbol that's very ancient, but you see down in the crop circles a lot. And as Richard Benesch told us, this is not just a religious symbol. It's become a religious symbol because King Solomon understood it. It brings light from above and light from below, and it balances negative energy. And you see it a lot in crop circles. They use all of our symbols. Or their symbols. We're using their symbols. Who knows?
We're all familiar, I think, with the Fibonacci series. You take 0 and 1, you add the last two together, you get to the next one, and you keep on making this forward, and you look at the ratio of the last two digits all the time, and it always goes to 1.612, whatever it is, phi, kind of magic. And it's all through nature. You can see it in nautilus shells and sunflower seeds and da-da-da-da. And there's a crop circle incorporating the Fibonacci series. And that ratio is called the golden ratio. It's in all of the great pictures, the pleasing aspects and so on. And this particular one is just incredible. You think, well, somebody's going to do this in the dark without lights.
Each one of those spirals, there's 44 of them, and each one comes down to, 32.72 degrees. Each spiral, 32.72 degrees at night in wheat.
So that's not likely to be something that's done mechanically. We see the golden ratios throughout the human body. You measure various things. You could take everybody's measurement, the height and the belly button to the floor and the top of your head to the floor, and look at the ratios and average it out. It's 1.61. It's the same thing. It's all through our body. It's all through nature. So what is that? Why would they be telling us that if they're not saying, oh, by the way, someday you'll kind of figure this out. We designed you. Might be part of the solution here. Go ahead.
So, as Dowsers, we're preaching to the choir here, that energy responds to our consciousness. But a lot of people don't know that. And with crop circles, you see that all the time. Somebody has an intention and a crop circle comes up. The researchers have a question. I wonder if they can do this. The crop circle people show them the next summer. Yes, we can do that. A Mayan elder arrived in England one day, and the same day he arrived, there was a beautiful Mayan crop circle that came down. There is consciousness changing all the time and being represented in matter.
15 minutes after the first impacts in the 9/11 event, when the whole world focused on this horrible thing, the satellites, the geosynchronous satellites out there measuring the parameters of the Earth, found an anomalous spike in the magnetic field of the Earth. What is that connection if that's not human consciousness affecting our reality? We're beginning to call this CDP. You'll hear from Penny Kelly later today, which is, CDP stands for Charge Density Plasma. We'll get to that. We think everything is energy, and the CDP is a form of energy. This is a chart that William C. Levengood made of the fluctuations in the CDP energy that he was monitoring at the time that the London subways were bombed. Same kind of anomalous spike. Human reaction to tragedy affects parameters of the Earth. That's William C. Levengood, and there's Penny Kelly, his long-term assistant, who will be talking tonight. So we live in a manifest universe, and I mentioned before we started about the urn of water back there, and that you are living in a manifested vortex here. This is the structure of it. If you cut through it, that's a crop circle. It's a double spiral crop circle. And the structure here is a large thing. This one is probably 80 feet across in diameter. Connects to the one out there in the lake, and we are doing that. Part of the energy goes up, some of it goes down. It has a pattern to it. These two gals we met through our publishing, yeah. And okay, and they, if you want to get to the MLT for them, the most likely truth, their souls, last time they were incarnated, had chosen to inhabit bodies that were 4 feet tall, kind of gray skinned with big black eyes. Those bodies died in the Roswell crash, or one of those at that time. Their souls were here on Earth. They chose to reincarnate as humans. That's them. And they wrote those books, and we published those, because that's the kind of thing we do. And just before the Milk Hill formation occurred, which was just a month before 9/11, these two gals asked their contacts, the little gray beings that they were still in touch with, the Zeta folks, to make something that would be really spectacular. And this showed up. This is Brett Parrott. He was another part of the intentional creation of this. He was an Australian as well as those two gals. He was there. He asked the circle makers to make something really extraordinary. He went home, checked back in the morning, didn't see it, got disgusted, went home, started to go home, saw the news a big formation on Milk Hill. He said, what was this? He ran back there to see, and he was sitting below the hill, but this is what showed up on top of the hill. This was on top of Milk Hill. That's what he asked for. And it was a beautiful thing. It occurred, it's clearly an energy event, and it was 900 feet across, like 3 football fields wide. This is a mandala that evolved globally out of this over a number of years. There's your 3 football fields. You got to remember that it rained all night the morning that it showed up, and there was no mud on the crops, and the stalks were not broken, they were bent. It was an energy event. There's some kind of energy. We think it's related to the CDP, the charge density plasma. It was probably a 3-dimensional vortex of moving energy. We just see things on the crop circles typically as a slice because we're flatlanders. But there's a 3-dimensional and 4th dimensional with time dimension to many of these. In 1974, you might remember that Carl Sagan sent this message out to visitors, whoever they are, saying, hey, here we are. This is how we count. This is our chemistry, all this stuff. Sent it out there. And sent it way off. It shouldn't be back for 35 years, but in 2001, again, right before 9/11, this formation showed up. There was a face there, and there was a repetition or a replication in some way of Sagan's message from 1974, but it was a little different. And in Sagan's message at the bottom there, it had an image of the radio telescope from Puerto Rico. This had something different. It referred back to a formation in that same field a year earlier, saying, hey, we don't use radio telescopes, we do whatever it is. So you can look at that thing, and you can decode it, and this will take a whole afternoon, but you can go through it. Basically, they have the same mathematics as we do, same chemistry as we do, but their bodies have silicon. Who is our biologist here? What is characteristic? What kind of animal is characteristic of silicon in their bodies?
Insects.
Insects! Exoskeletons. Turns out to be the MLT. Turns out to be that form is fairly efficient for interplanetary travel. Minimal needs and all this sort of thing. And lots of different beings seem to inhabit those little gray bodies. So you can't say, that's a gray, that's evil, that's judgment, we don't know enough, can't say that. You can have wonderful, highly spiritual beings inside those bodies. Year after 9/11, crabwood, another face, another code. And when you decode that, it's coded like a CD. It uses ASCII code, if you know what that is, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. They know how we do these things, and they're saying, hey, here's a CD, read this. And it says, don't worry so much, there's time. There's good out there.
Don't
and
be
we
deceived.
oppose the deception. Yeah. What deception is that? There's plenty of things to choose from, but one of them might be, hey, there's nothing out there, and if there is out there, they're all evil. Doesn't seem to be.
A lot of people wonder why there's so many in England, but 80% of the agroglyphs in England lie on the counties that are producing most of the crop circles. It's about water. And the Mary Michael line runs right across that southern part of England, and all there's churches and sacred sites all along that line, and the agroglyph counties are around the Mary Michael line as well. And we are a water planet, we are water people, and plants are about 90-95% water. So we started back in 2001. What's the next slide? Let's talk about Emoto. Most people know about Emoto. About the same time, Brian was starting to think about the water in the crop circles and the plants. Emoto was discovering that this water was holding energy. And you know the story. He, thought about hate, and he thought about love, and then he froze it, and the crystals were very different. So if the plants are holding that much water, they must be holding the energy that's coming down in these crop circles. And we began enlisting Barbara Lamb, who's a dowser, and she'd go over there every year, and she puts water from the Glastonbury well into the energetic center of each crop circle. And you can move. And then we have a Akashic record reader who reads the energy of each one. And we have about 125 of these now because we've been doing it since 2001. And we've had amazing experiences. One of the people I'll be talking about in a few minutes, people will walk up to the table and go, I need this one. And you know, it's amazing. And the experiences are just incredible. We have one that we use, it was a honeybee that came down as a crop circle, and we use it for arthritis.
So when you have a chance, look at them over there in the vending area. If you feel attracted to one of them, inquire. And then the whole Akashic record reading is over there. You can look it up. And you'll probably find out why there's some attraction between you and it. They act like little energy beings. They become your friend.
Yeah, Angel Rose, she's an Akashic record reading, and they're like little beings, and they start naming themselves. And one of the instances we had that was very interesting is the next slide shows a Maya type, a very earth crop circle. And Angel was saying, this is definitely Maya, and it's not M-A-Y-A, it's M-A-I-A. And she said, they keep showing me the second star in on the Pleiades. Do you know what that name is? And sure enough, we looked it up later, and it was M-A-I-A. It's just confirmation as you go along in this.
Again, these things don't prove anything, but inwardly, you know, that there's something real here.
So this one is point of intersection, and this was one of the ones that someone came up to and was very drawn to it. And this is Satya Alcorn. She'll be telling her story in Calhoun on tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And she was going through a real transformation process at the time. And she was attracted to that, and she was doing bead work. And as the weeks progressed, she noticed that her bead work that she was working on, she'll tell you how she got those beads, started looking like this crop circle. And then she was led to do smaller pieces, and she wanted us to see the smaller pieces. Her story is much more elaborate than that, but she can tell you that if you want to see it. And it was right before we were going to England, and we went up to see it. And she said that when, I don't know if you can see it, but between the quadrants, there's 2 little clear beads. And she said once she put those in, she knew that this was for us and was meant for us. And as soon as I saw it, I knew this was the one we should use to manifest a crop circle. And I tried to get it out of my head because there were going to be 18 people, and we all should come up with an idea, but I could not. It was locked in there. So we took it over to England, the picture, and everybody agreed, and we did our manifestation, we did our visualization, and we let it go. And we said, what we're asking for is diamond shape and equilateral cross. You can do anything else, but if we get those things, we'll know we've connected. So the next day, that's what we got. 2 little circles in the quadrants, which we really didn't even grasp until we got home, because when you're in it, they're big, so you're not thinking about it. And there were 18 components to that crop circle, and there were 18 of us. And then the next day, we got that. That was across from Stonehenge. And there was a lot of mathematicians in our group, and that's a squared circle, which is not easy to do. Done at night, it was beautiful, beautiful lay in that one. And the third day, we got that one. Now that one we didn't get in because you can see a tiny little tractor coming in, and he's going to mow it down.
Because there is that politics over there where a number of the farmers are okay with all of this, and they know it's real. More likely, they don't want to be the one they poke fun of down at the pub. They want to be conservative and all this stuff, and just, that's all pranksters in the night. So there is that, and a lot of times they come out and destroy it right away.
So I was in the second one we got, the one across from Stonehenge, and I was lying there in a meditative state, and all of a sudden I felt this hand come down. And I thought it was Brian, so my hand shot up, and nobody was there. And I felt when I got home that what I was given back was the gift of me. Because I wouldn't be standing up here talking to you. And it was like, even though no matter how much I wanted to, I wouldn't have done it. I would have been in a closet. And it really shifted me. And I woke up one morning very early and I heard the words, this is contact, this is connection, this is communication.
Statistically, one instance makes no difference. It's just an anomaly. Statistically, two things don't prove anything because that's just a coincidence. Here we got a coincidence of those two patterns a year apart, each one had a face and a code. That's a coincidence, but three events statistically can be significant. And when we thought about it a little bit, we asked for a very specific type of crop circle and got three of them, diamond-shaped with an equilateral cross. So the question is, how many are there like that? And I surveyed all of the 478 or whatever formations in the 13 years prior to that time, and I categorized them all as either being like what we asked for or not. And these 12, some of them you might think don't really fit, I'm being generous, but 12 out of those 400 and some might be thought to be like that. Well, that's only 1.6% of the total. We had three in a row like that. And if you know anything about statistics, you know that anything less than 1% is highly significant. This is 0.0002%. It's like impossible. So it's more likely to fully sort a deck of cards and pull out all four aces one after the other. What that meant was, this is not a random event. Something caused this. And so what it is probably it's reacting to our intention. There's something listening.
Yeah, no, it's clear. And they are very patient. I just love that. You know, you have a question, okay, we're going to give you an answer. They're showing us new science. They're showing us how powerful our thoughts are. And it's just quietly in the fields. I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful way to interact with something that's beyond here. This crop circle came down last year, and it was by the Sun people, apparently, that Angel never heard of before, and we thought, well, maybe this is new energy coming in because maybe our energy is raising up, and now they can come in. So, and it's very different look.
And statistically, it needs to be said that with that large set of items to look at, you can look at the patterns and who made what. I mean, one of the questions we had, who made it? Well, some of them are Arcturian, some are Pleiadian, and so on. And the pattern was very stable from year to year up until 2012 and new players. So what that means to me is some folks are holding back. Oh, those humans, they'll never get through 2012.
But
now
we did. We did.
We're here, and that's good news.
Yeah, this, I don't know if you can see it, but we have to move along, but the lay of the crop is just incredible, just woven and layers upon layers and upon layers.
As you start looking at a lot of these, you start seeing that there are some parallels in the patterns. These are all Arcturian, according to the Akashic record readings. And you can see the motif on the left there, the kind of bird-like, swallow-like thing, they like that. They like these angular ones with long, straight lines and so on. This one is also Arcturian. There's, again, a lot of straight lines, and that's part of the Akashic reading of it. These were this last summer. Yeah, this is revitalization. This is Pleiadian. A lot of the Pleiadians are softer, a lot of geometry in those. This one, the Dance of Life, apparently was done by angelic muses. And that's the first time we've come across that, but another very beautiful thing. This one's almost funny, and occasionally we see some that have humor in them, which is encouraging.
And it's a play on your eyes.
This one came down in 2 days. The first day had the outer ring, and the second day put the moon face or whatever it is in there. You see the green moon face facing to the left, but there's a figure ground thing going on there. There's maybe a face kind of a white face facing right. This one, again, last year, very interesting pattern of circles within circles.
And Brian's going to show you, this one came down in Raisting, Bavaria, and the one he just showed you was very similar to the logo of the company that it resides next to where this crop circle came down. Yeah.
So we asked Engel Rose about that, and the answer was yes.
They're connected. That's the way they can show us. Put the pieces together.
What came out of that reading was very interesting in that the company, it's a satellite dish communication company, one of the 4 biggest ones in the world. And the answer that came back was yes, they can communicate with us through those kinds of dishes, and they want to. When this one came down in Raisting, we didn't have anybody on the ground to go and get those energies, but we did talk to these 2 folks that are customers of ours, and she's a Reiki 2 master, and it was too far for them to go from Hamburg to Bavaria, but she said, let me try. And so what she did was she pulled the energy from Raisting to Bavaria through remote Reiki, brought it into a stone basin into which she had recreated that image, and put water. What water was it?
Oh, she just happened to have Glastonbury well water. She just happened to have it. What a coincidence.
So we dowsed and analyzed both of these waters, the water that she got by remote Reiki and the water that their friends got by going there physically and obtaining the energized water in that way. And they dowsed that at the same point on the Bova scale. So that is then essence number 1422, and it called itself Orim. So that's the pattern. When you get over to the vending area, you'll see a world map that's related to this. This is part of her reading of the Orim essence, and the thrust of it is that that essence transmutes dark energies of war-torn places into positive places. It's a peace-bringing thing, and that's made by a group of spiritual beings. Now, parallel to this, Petra was doing this thing with the water and everything, and she got a reading on that before we shared all of Engel's stuff with her. And what she got was, we can use a map and put the crop circle symbol in little pictures on every country of the earth where there presently is war or crisis. And she got an interpretation too that it was made by Pleiadians. Just, this is the overlap between these. So Orim is important, and so what we have done over there is to put a world map out there, which you'll see in one corner behind our table. And there are stickers there available, and what you do is you just intend peace in the world at that place, and you put that sticker on that map. That's how we invite them. They don't interfere unless we ask. This is how they want us to ask.
And the drops from the essence are on the stickers. So.
Yeah. So Petra got another reading when she was working with Orim, and the beings told her that it would be very beneficial to combine energy from the very first one we worked with, the Milk Hill formation, with the one at that time, which was the last one, Orim. And this ended the presentation.
That was the end.